Time for another week of NFL football. We're going to talk NFL Week 14. We'll be using the full screen here today because I have a little setup that might be bad. I'm in my room, my parents' house, so I'm here with a bad connection, but we'll still be able to get through everything with you, preview all the games, talk some props, talk some Boom Fantasy. I'm Gino Bacola alongside Eric from ETOP21 Sports. Eric, your Lions held on Thursday. Want to give a quick thought on that one? That was a big game, right? You have these big games. You're going to win some close games now and then. Probably good to see that you got tested and you had to step up.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good game. Obviously, a little bit worried about, the decisions and everything. I've been as critical as anyone on Campbell for going for it, but with the situation with your
defense
and everything, it was the right play, because if that defense was bleeding production, your top 4 defensive linemen were out. Branch, who's your top DB, was out, and your 2 top linebackers were out. I mean, it's just
you're better off. You're better off making one play to pick that up than having to depend on your defense in that situation.
Now, if you want to debate about the play call, not having Goff do a sneak on third down, I'm all for that. But
absolutely, that's a different conversation. But just the idea of, hey, look, we know our defense is hurt. Our best case scenario is let's put the ball in the hands of the offense and pick it up, and that's fine, right? But circumstance, because it's not always. That's the thing when you have the analytic models and stuff, they don't always take into account what you just said. Is the defense banged up? Has the defense been on the field? Is the other offense moving down on the defense quickly, right? So loved all of that. Campbell and the Lions pick up another win. They're at the top of the league right now. Let's see who else wants to join them towards the tip top of the NFL. It might be the Minnesota Vikings. They've had a really good season so far. The thing about them, though, Eric, as they host the Falcons, we have the Kirk Cousins Bowl coming up. They haven't been a team beating the crap out of their opponents, right? They're a good team. They were winning a lot of games. They're winning a lot of close games. Solid defense. They'll make some plays with Darnold. They haven't been covering with margin all that much. And you look at this game, nobody wants to play Kirk Cousins right now. Anyone that watched that Chargers game last week that saw how bad Cousins looked, the topic has been, do we move to Penix? What should we do here? He can't even move. I went through some of the numbers the other day. He's by far dead last when it comes to throws outside of the pocket. I mean, it's not even close when you compare it to some of the others there. So this feels to me like the spot for the Falcons more than for the Vikings, right? Especially with that number.
I can't do anything here with what, for me, mainly it comes down to a matchup. Falcons have the 18th best offensive line, and Cousins leads the NFL in interceptions thrown against pressure. He literally has no zip on the ball. Kyle Pitts has done another disappearing act. Honestly, if I'm a GM, if I'm an offensive coordinator, if I could find a way to make Kyle Pitts relevant, I would probably be worth $1 millionaire, just because he has been nothing.
I'd go take a swing on him, right? Yeah.
Nothing but a disaster since he's gotten into the league. I get the narrative, but for the life of me, I just cannot get there, just because of how bad he has looked against pressure. Falcons defense.
That right there, what you said, that is what is scary as a gambler wanting to play the Falcons. Just how bad Cousins was last week moving, right? He can't move at all. And that's the one thing we know about the Vikings defense. They're just going to come after you.
Yeah, and they're going to look to get after you. Vikings, 22nd DVOA defending the pass, 23rd against wide receiver ones per DVOA. They just gave up 116 to Ladd McConkey. How are they going to stop Justin Jefferson is the question. I have no idea. I want nothing to do with this game. If you want to have fun, honestly, if you want to play this game, I think the way to do it is just to bet, and DraftKings has this, that Kirk Cousins is going to have the most passing yards.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to do it, just because for them to win, that's what needs to happen. So that's what I would look to do here.
And I'm going to do the same thing. I think on DraftKings, you throw in a little Cousins, because maybe there is a version of this game where Cousins throws 3 or 4 touchdowns, has a really nice game. I would prefer playing it in DraftKings or in a prop then, because that could still happen. They could still lose. in this game. So, yeah, I think I'm with you, and more so, let's look for a way to get some sort of Cousins prop in there, but I really can't lean on what I've seen from Atlanta all that much. That's game one this morning. Anything else on that one, Eric?
Definitely, I think it's worth throwing Jefferson in a prop too, in a DraftKings lineup too, just because AJ Terrell has not been it. This defense is literally getting no pressure whatsoever. This Falcons team should be out of the playoffs in my eyes. I really think like the playoff ticket we have for them not to make it, I think it's really much alive. I just think it's a good, they're going to be a good team to fade moving forward. And then they make the playoffs. We definitely got to look to start fading this team just because I think this team is just doesn't have enough pieces. They made that trade for Judon. And to say that hasn't worked out has been putting it politely.
Yeah, that's being kind. Okay, Eric, let's get to the Giants hosting the New Orleans Saints. Giants are a 5.5-point dog at home. Man, Drew Lock started last week. He got beat up. He got hit a ton. It's not as if they've been good, right? We can go through the Giants. They've really been struggling. They're 8-21 since the start of last season. The defense hasn't gotten an interception since week 1. A lot of bad things.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the Saints, though, Eric. This team is a 5.5-point favorite on the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not healthy, not 100%. The defense has been struggling. Like they can give up big plays. I'm not lining up to go bet the Giants with what I've seen from them recently, but just the first thing I thought when I looked at this line right off the bat Monday was, God, this feels a little high for the Saints.
It feels way too high, and they have no weapons. I really think if you have Kamara, the play to do is to go get Miller, who's coming off the IR. He's going to be the clear backup in New Orleans. In terms of this game, in terms of sides, I just did Tyrone Tracy. I did his rushing prop over 59.5 yards. When we look at the Saints, 32nd DVOA and PFF defending the run, allowing 136 yards per game, which is 26th most in the league. I think they're just going to lean on the run game here. They're going to try to limit Lock. With how bad the Saints defense is up front, they're going to be able to do that and not get behind the sticks. Lock should look a little bit more comfortable getting a full week.
Yeah, practice of reps. Just exactly.
Also important to remember, Neighbors is hurt. Now, this is kind of the time of the season where we can kind of figure out what's going on with these guys. Neighbors just kind of appeared. So if Neighbors sits, that kind of leads to the
tanking, maybe
speculation that there could be some tanking. So
yeah, I would think you're on the right spot here. It's just keep an eye on this one. I do not know how I could lay 5.5.
I think the play is bet the Tracy over. I got 59.5. And then in your DFS lineups, you got to use Kamara and you got to use Tracy. I think that's kind of the thought process.
And it's funny when you look at Drew Lock too, we think of him as like this veteran. Drew Lock started 5 games, 13 games, 3 games, and 2 games. That's just like a little over a season. He's still got, you know what I mean? It's not even like he's had that many starts under his belt. This guy still is kind of young with some upside. I think every time he's able to string starts together, I feel like the second and the third start are going to be better. He's just not had that many reps out there.
Honestly. I liked him when he.
I remember you've always been kind of a Lock fan.
I like how he stepped. The main thing I look for when I've done this stuff with like the scouting and everything is, do they step into throws? Do they transfer their weight moving forward?
Fundamentals, stuff like that.
That's what he does. I mean, I really like that.
And he's goofy. I like that. I kind of like his personality too as a quarterback. Yeah. Like he's funny, he's goofy, he's silly out there. A lot of the teammates like him. Let's see if he can string some things together here with the Giants. I'd definitely be on that side versus the Saints, but not necessarily lining up to go there right now. Titans 3-point favorite hosting the Jags here. So we've got Levis and Mac Jones going at it in this one. Titans home in this game. Eric, what are your thoughts here?
Another barn burning game of two
awful teams.
But with how bad these defensive are, I really think there's a path to kind of have this kind of be a quote unquote barn burning type game. we really got to, these secondaries, they do have some holes. They do have some backup guys playing. I know people are going to look to Brian Thomas Jr., Evan Ingram. We need to remember about Washington for the Jaguars. I think at DFS, he's a great matchup. What I did here is I just bet Calvin Ridley in the revenge game spot. I think over 61.5 yards. Jags run man coverage, third highest rate in the league this season against man coverage. Ridley leads the Titans, in receiving yards and target share. Jags are 32nd DVOA defending the pass, 29th coverage team per PFF. He's going to be matched up against Campbell or Darby, both of who PFF graded 80 or lower. The last 5 wide receiver ones that have gone against the Jags are averaging 6 receptions, 97 yards per game. All of them went over this, except for Jefferson, who had 48 yards. Ridley has gone over this total 3 of his last 5 games, averaging 71 yards per game. Important to know also, when we look at the Mac Jones start, Mac Jones tends to go to the tight end a lot, so maybe look to some Ingram pops, but I think Washington's kind of a little sneaky play here.
That's who I play too. He was someone that they were kind of trying to force into a role, and he was not quite getting there, and then he put it all together. 6 catches, 100 yards, first 100-yard game. Coming into that game, he only had 9 catches, and he's the guy they're trying to have replace Kirk, right? Kind of like step up into that role. So I think he's an interesting play. What was his prop? I put it today like 31, right? Low. I sent that in as one.
I'm just doing him in DFS. I didn't do his props.
Because I played his prop. I thought it was a pretty low number too. I think it was just like 30, like low 30s for yards. So someone you want to throw in for some DFS, and maybe someone you want to play. It was 31.5 for his receiving yards, which, I mean, that's the type of number what you can get on one catch, realistically, So couple comments from the folks out there. Sports Facts, what a cover by Tulane in hoops. And Eric, about the college football playoff that's going to be coming out. Is SMU the odd man out today?
For me, yes, but I don't know. It's weird because I'm trying to find what Florida State was last year to make it, and they, you know what I mean? Like, what were they last year to make it? Because they didn't make it. And I don't know if they were the betting favorite, and I don't know. It was up to me. They would be out. I don't think they're that good. I think I would go to Alabama. I would probably go to South Carolina, but that's just me. So. But
shout out to Timothy Chalamet doing the college game day picks yesterday. And they have the guest pickers up there. Most of the time, there's someone who like is a fan of one of the teams that they're in the big game that they're covering, and most of the time it's someone who doesn't really know football in depth. But Chalamet was like dropping some knowledge out there. I was like, well done, Timothy Chalamet. I love seeing anyone that talks.
I saw the video on social media. I have no idea who that guy is.
He's the guy who played Wonka in the new Wonka movie. He's, you know what I mean? Like, he's probably, for our generation, someone that you would just say like that. Like, someone would be like, who is that guy? You've probably seen him pop up in some things and not quite realize. I think he's actually playing Bob Dylan in the movie that's coming out too, in like the biopic coming up. So shout out.
We were making a Bob Dylan movie. That's how much I'm out of the loop.
Especially during football season, when you get your blinkers on. Like, once football ends, then you'll throw on a Netflix movie or something here and there. But during football season, blinkers on for Eric with the college and the NFL. Let's get back to some of our NFL games for today. So, Eric, let's go to the Raiders at the Bucks. When you were talking about the Falcons struggling now in the division and they're tied with Tampa, I mean, just based on numbers, by the end of this day, Tampa's supposed to be up by a game in the division. Still feels big for Tampa. I mean, even in this spot, like, the Raiders haven't been good. The Raiders haven't been all that impressive, but still does feel a little big for Tampa here at 6.5. Their offense playing much better, though. Baker playing really, really well. And now they have a legitimate chance to be a playoff team. And honestly, when you think of what they've done this year, right? They beat Philly. They were competitive with the Lions. This is a team that actually you feel like can kind of step up and be competitive against good opponents because they can score a little bit. I would much prefer them in the playoffs than the Falcons, just from a fan of football and seeing them play against a better team. Now, all that said, what do we do about this particular game with them as a heavy favorite?
So I did 2 bets in this game. First bet is Jacoby Myers over, 60.5 receiving yards. I was high on Devontae Adams coming into this year. Obviously, he's not there. Jacoby Myers, he has gone into the Devontae Adams role great. Since Adams has been traded, 10 targets, 6 receptions, 75 yards per game. He's gone over this in 6 of 8 games since the Adams trade. He is the clear number 1 target. Bucks are banged up in the secondary, so I like Jacoby Myers. Next bet we're going Mike Evans, 68.5 yards receiving. I gave this out on my podcast on Friday. This line is ticked up. It's about 72, 73 now. I wouldn't play her much higher than 75. Evans has been very vocal about getting the 1,000-yard streak. He needs to average 96 yards per game to get that. Since coming back from injury, he's averaging 9 receptions, 93 yards a game. Raiders are 25th DVOA defending the pass with the worst coverage grade per PFF. Run man coverage, 13th highest rate in the league. Evans supports a 28% target share versus man coverage. Look, in terms of sides, I really don't know what to do here. Raiders are in that standalone game. Are the public going to see this and kind of say, hey, you know what? They should have beat the Chiefs, another suspect call. But when we look at it, the last 7 years, they are 3-8-2 the week after playing the Chiefs. Mayfield, 38% ATS as a favorite, 47% ATS as a favorite for Todd Bowles. Do we really trust either one of them to win with margin? Bucks do run a lot of zone coverage. This is going to benefit Myers, benefit Bowers. They're going to be able to move the ball. Bucks are coming off of overtime game last 20 years. Teams are coming off an overtime game, 44% ATS the last 20 years. These are 2 teams I really wanted to look to fade because of that. I can't do anything, so I'm just playing these props. Jacoby Myers, he is insanely underpriced, and I would definitely look to get that player prop in. Excuse me, I can't talk today.
Couple props for Eric in this one. Let's move to the Browns at the Steelers. Steelers a 6.5 point favorite. They've taken a stranglehold in the division now, but just on pure principle, it's funny because a few weeks ago, the Browns beat the Steelers head up, and now the Steelers are a 6.5 point favorite against that same Browns team. Browns come off that game on Monday night with Jameis, which was insane, throwing for almost 500 yards, the 3 interceptions.
Jameis
being Jameis, but these are the types of games, Eric, when we don't really like playing Pittsburgh when they have to cover as a big favorite, when they have to cover with margin. They're likely the team that you and I are playing when they're a dog. Maybe it's a game, it's a spread that's 3 or less. But these bigger numbers, they're a little less likely to cover. And I feel a little more hesitant about wanting to lay a number like this with Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I got the 6.5 here with the Browns. I say it every week. Tomlin is a dog we love, is a favorite we fade. 40% ATS is a favorite. As a favorite, over 3.5, 46% ATS is a favorite off a win, 41%. Also, after the game Wilson had, how can we not fade him? That was his best passing game since 2019. I know that people will say that Browns defense is down, but I think we'll be able to limit Wilson. Last game, I know it was in the snow, but I think it's a good matchup for the Browns. Garrett is a stud. Even though the Browns are down this year defensively, the Steelers have the 23rd best pass blocking line per PFF. How are they going to stop Garrett? Especially the right side of the line. Jones, 60th PFF right tackle. McTermick, 58th PFF right guard. Wilson has struggled when facing pressure. Winston has a dog getting 3.5 or more, 65.6% ATS. What would this line be if the Browns won or cover that game against the Broncos? And when we look at it, look, they had the Broncos touchdowns. They had a broken play, 95-yard touchdown, 2 pick sixes, and Winston had a chance to get them in the end zone, but through another INT. They had 28 first downs, 552 total yards of offense, over 150 more than the Broncos, almost 200 more yards passing than the Broncos. They had 84 offensive plays. They dominated that game. And everyone's talking to me, Winston against this Steelers defense. The Broncos defense is just as good, and they handled it fine. If the Browns would have covered or won that game, this would be closer to 3.5, 4. This is an overvalued look. Give me the Browns here, plus 6.5. Also, situational-wise, Eagles are on deck.
Eric, we move next up to one of the games that I had a tougher time with because Carolina's
pulled the trigger. Gino, it got to 14.
At 14. Now you pulled it? Okay, there we go. Because I was going to say it was 12.5 when you and I talked the other day, but now it got to the number because this is just too big for a Carolina team that's been playing much better. That's the issue. They've been improved. We've seen them in particular. We've seen Bryce Young play way, way better. He finished with 298 passing yards, which was the second most in his career. He had 186 yards in the first half. That's the most of any half in his career. And he was very, very good against zone coverage. So something he could pick apart here. Where I get a little bit worried about this game is defensively. Carolina, can they stop the Eagles, right? The Eagles offense now is really well balanced. They're running the ball well with Barkley. Hurts has limited some of the turnovers there. But Eric, 12.5, I'm humming and hawing a little bit. You're right. Now that we're up at 14, I think the side is Carolina here.
Yeah, look, when I was working out this, I got an alert that I got to 14 when I was working out this morning. So I pulled the trigger. Give me the 14 here. This is just way too big of the number. It's a good situational spot with the Eagles having the Steelers on deck. Look, I know there's worrisome points. How are they going to stop Hurts? How are they going to stop Barkley? Hurts does struggle covering these big numbers. 3-9 is one in his career, 9-1 his last 10. Young has looked better since coming back from the injury. I think this is just the spot and a number play. I said I needed to get 14. I got the 14 situational spot. And Sirianni has showed us before these games when they should roll the last couple of years, he is not doing a good job of getting the Eagles locked in. They probably are running stuff for next week. So I'll take the Panthers here.
Big dogs are on the Panthers. Let's go Bryce Young as we move along. Eric, we're up to the Jets at the Dolphins. Another one where nobody wants to play the Jets in this game. They have looked really bad last week. They were up big, and then everything flipped after Rodgers missed what would have been a touchdown to put them up 28-7. Next play, pick six, entire game is flipped. Miami, though, defensively, they haven't looked all that great. They're coming off of a disappointing effort. It was in the snow. Now they'll get back to warmer weather, to warmer climate. But I just don't feel like watching this Miami team. They should be favored by this much over many teams this year because they haven't been that impressive defensively. I would lean Jets here if I had to. This was probably the last call, I think, for the Jets. What you were kind of pointing out earlier. Do we get one more game where we get as good of an effort as possible from them? And then, maybe we'll see moving forward if it's going to be Rodgers anymore or not. I'd still lean Jets in this game.
I did it. I got the 6. I did the Jets here. And when we look at, there's kind of a path where they do have the matchup advantage. I know Sauce isn't playing, but Sauce has sucked this year. Sauce has been insanely down this year. So obviously that may be a blessing in disguise. Dolphins, zone coverage, 31st in the league running zone coverage. Wilson is one of the better wide receivers in the league facing zone coverage. I think that's going to be the key. I think Rodgers is going to look to target Zach Wilson. Now, when we look at the Jets, they run man coverage at a top 10 rank. And Waddle and Hill this year, this is what blew my mind when you read it out loud, are outside the top 40 against man coverage. But when you think of what the Dolphins like to do, they just run to a spot, sit, and then Tua gets them the ball, which is really easy to do against zone coverage. Against man coverage, you have a guy locking you up, and it's harder to do that. So there is a path where there's going to be a way that the Jets are going to be able to move the ball, and the Dolphins are going to struggle moving the ball. I know there's been this Jonnu Smith revelation, but the Jets are 12 DVOA defending the tight end. So
matchup-wise, it's a good matchup for the Jets.
They're divisional favorites, laying 6 or more last 20 years, 48%. When they're home favorites, they're 46.8%. Since 2018, 43.6%. This year, 2-9. So there are some trends supporting the Jets here. And this is their kitchen sink game. They're going to be throwing everything at the wall because if they lose this, the season's done. They're eliminated. But technically, they're still alive. This is it. As much as I'm not a fan of Aaron Rodgers as a person, he is an egotistical guy, so he's going to throw everything out there. Also important to remember, Dolphins, not 1, not 2, but 3 guys left that game against the Packers banged up in the secondary. So they're going to be even more banged up in the back 4. And the one thing that's really stood out to me since McDaniel has got there, anytime that they're punched in the face, they don't punch.
They back up. Yeah.
So look, I'm doing it. I got the Jets here plus 6.5, and I absolutely hate it.
Dirty from Christina Aguilera, but we got the Jets. We got the Panthers in a couple of these games. We got the Browns in another one. Let's get to Arizona hosting Seattle. Arizona is a 3-point favorite here. This game was a few weeks ago, and Arizona looked pretty bad in that game. They did not move the ball offensively. Seattle's kind of flipped their season over the last few weeks, and they probably should have lost to the Jets last week, and the Jets really cratered down the stretch. At up to 3 now, are you doing anything with Arizona minus the 3?
Nope. I got it at 2.5. Gave this out on my show.
It just feels right at about 3. Yeah. Like this is what you wanted to get it under 3.
Get it. Buying low, selling high. Is there a team higher than the Seahawks? They've won 3 straight, covered 3 straight, are leading the NFC West. But when we look at the travel spot, they literally just play the Cards in Seattle, went out east to New York, beat the Jets, came back. We're getting boat race in the first half. Came back. There's that lotto ticket, pick 6, INT return for Williams. Now you went back to Seattle, now traveling down to Arizona. Nice little travel spots. When we look at it, Murray has performed better at home this year. I really think the Cards are going to be able to move the ball on the ground. 6 DVOA, best rushing team this year. PFF has them as the 9th best rushing attack. Seattle, 25th this year defending the run per PFF. They're able to move the ball on the ground. What's they going to do is going to allow stuff for Murray to open up against the Seattle defense. We need to remember McBride is the best tight end against the game. In the game, he had 155 on 13 last game against Seattle. Cards, 13th best defense in the league, 12th best DVOA against the pass, 9th defending wide receiver ones, held Metcalf to 4 for 59. When you look at how Metcalf has done against the Gannon defense, 6 targets, 3 receptions, 35 yards per game. I think they're going to be able to limit DK Metcalf, and that puts more pressure on Geno Smith to find these secondary guys. And I don't trust Geno Smith in the spot. Look, they are 11th against the run. This is the point now where I'd read all my stuff, how Kenneth Walker has struggled against the Cards, but he's not playing. It's Zach Charbonnet, so I'm not going to mention any of that stuff. I think Seattle's going to have a hard time moving the ball. When we look back at the Cardinals game, how did they not beat the Vikings? 77 offensive plays, more total yards, more passing yards, 100 more rushing yards, 10 more minutes of time of possession. Literally, if they
2 bad interceptions from Kyler in the 4th. That was it, honestly. That was
if we look at it, and Seattle should have lost to the Jets.
Absolutely.
So if Seattle loses and the Cards win, this game's 3.5, 4.
Absolutely.
So you get a little bit of line value here because of that. So I did it. I wouldn't take, if I absolutely was dying to make a bet, I'd take the 3. But this is going to move a little. There's going to be like buybacks and everything. It's going to dip down to 2.5. So if you are patient, wait till the dip down to 2.5, then lock this in because this game doesn't kick off till later.
Yeah, and a couple just like small matchup things. Where Seattle struggles a lot of time is on their offensive line. Last week, the Cardinals generated a season-high 53.8% pressure rate, 5 sacks, 14 Cardinals defenders generated a pressure. 9 had multiple pressures. I think that they're going to be able to put some pressure on the quarterback, as you said. Without Kenneth Walker there, it's going to be a little bit tougher without one of their real playmakers around. McBride has been a monster those last couple of weeks. 12 receptions, 133 yards, 12 receptions for 96 yards. Really, really talented tight end who is just an awesome like safety valve for Kyler Murray. When he looks there, when he needs someone to go to, it's McBride, who's just awesome. The one positive I wanted to give for Seattle, I'm sure they loved, the Jets loved last week having to see Leonard Williams and Geno Smith just eat them alive in that game with the guys that they drafted high that they were hoping were going to be big parts of their franchise. So, yeah, we're looking to the Cardinals in this game, see the best number that you can get. Let's get to a comment or two I think we had in there. Eric, FanDuel has Tenney against Ohio State with OSU laying minus 7.5. What do you think?
Oh, Jesus.
Stuff's coming out right now, huh? I guess. Here we go. Yeah.
Jesus. I wouldn't do anything there. Like, literally, I would probably play the under, if anything. I have no idea what the under is. If the under is like 48 and a half, I'd play the under.
Smooth Bobby Thomas. There we go. Bobby, MSU, Eric. What did we tell you?
Bobby's been hyping MSU. And look, they stay healthy, they're good. They could seriously, I think there's value on them. I think they're getting a little overlooked. They got some bigs, they got some guards this year. Not so much one-dimensional with Walker as they've been in years past.
Great to hear from Bobby Thomas. Let's make some money. Sports Fact. I hate the Lakers. Thanks to all of you for checking in with us. Where do we head next, Eric? We go the Bears at the 49. Or no, excuse me. We skip the Bills at the Rams. I know my team, and I gave this one out. Every week I go on a couple radio shows. I'll give out a couple horses and usually like a football spot or a prop. I gave this one out with the Rammies. I got it at 4, I believe, earlier in the week. It just is the right spot. Everybody saw Buffalo on Sunday night, look really impressive, beat up on the 49ers. Josh Allen is now the MVP or favorite. You look at the way that the AFC is set up now with Baltimore struggling a little bit, Kansas City not looking as impressive. Buffalo's kind of quietly crept up now towards the top of the AFC. Like you always say, Eric, buy low, sell high. I think right now is the highest value opinion of the Buffalo Bills. And the Rams come off a game where they were disappointing. They were bad in the first half, but they came back. Their offense looked much better in the second half against the Saints. That was more of like a Saints spot, too. We were on the Saints side in that game. This one just feels like you come back and you got the Rams at home, Buffalo traveling. They played the Sunday night game, so it's a little bit of a short week for them, too. Just a lot of things in the Rams' favor here. And I thought at anything over 3, I would take the Rams.
Yeah, I got your boys. I got them at 4.5. The Bills locked up the division, playing on a short week, have a game against the Lions on deck. Bills run zone coverage at the 8th highest rate in the league. Stafford, when you look at his splits, has done insanely well against zone coverage. Kupp graded PFF wide receiver 16th. Nakua PFF graded 14th player against zone. They're going to be able to find holes in this coverage. They're going to be able to move the ball. Rams offensive line getting healthier is going to be able to protect Stafford. Bills do have some issues on the interior offensive line. I think First and company is going to be able to get there. And the really thing that stood out to me is like PFF has the Bills as the 6th worst run defense, which kind of when you look at their metrics, that kind of stood out to me. You're going to be able to get Williams going. I think they're going to be able to move the ball here. Kind of just it's a flat spot for the Bills. Like if they come out here and they get it done, they get it done. But historically speaking, these are the bets you have to make as a gambler because the spot is to take the Rams. Is it going to hit all the time? No. But long-term, you take spots like this, you will be successful.
Bears at the 49ers. This number has moved down because we get the fired coach bump. Everybody loves playing that angle. Bears fired their coach. 49ers, they've been really struggling, though, Eric. At 3, though, it feels probably where it should be because this number has moved down a little bit, right? If you wanted to play the Bears.
Yeah. Is it at 3 right now? Is that what you said?
It's at 3 right now, yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Because we've seen this move a ton. What did you get it at?
So, like, I haven't done anything. Like, okay. I wrote. So basically, what I do is I always like write little notes out before the game starts, and before these games start, and I'm like, okay, if this game gets to X, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna look to play it. Important to note: George Pickens is inactive today for the Steelers. Wow. And I had 49ers 3 or less. Here's a weird fact before I get into this. Matt Eberflus, the best coach ATS record to be fired. We need to remember this number was at 6.5. Now it's all the way down to 3. I don't think Williams is playing. Have they said anything if Trent Williams is playing yet?
No, I haven't seen. Only ones I've seen so far. Madison is inactive. Bucky Irving is active. Sauce Gardner inactive. Malik Neighbors is active, and then Pickens, who you just mentioned. I'm still watching Rappaport and Shefty right now to see what comes out.
There's going to be more film on Caleb Williams. He has looked better since Jones has taken over as the play caller. But now with more film, different looks, how is he going to look now with defenses getting used to what he likes to do? If the Lions didn't have so many injuries and they ended up covering that 9.5, 10, what would this number be? You know, because the Lions started to drop, Bears started to move the football a lot more. 49ers struggle with no Trent Williams. Obviously, if he's not there, you got to look to kind of get involved with the Bears. But the Bears are the public dog.
Oh, I know. Everyone's on this team this
Teams
week.
after facing the Lions are 2-9 this season, 36% the last 3 seasons. Bears do struggle defending the run. So I really don't care what's going on with whoever out there in the backfield. I could be lined up back there, and I'm going to be involved.
You're going to get 50 yards for under Shanahan.
Every single one of my DFS lineups. Look, Purdy in his shoulder, we don't know what it is. Historically speaking, those are pretty nasty for quarterbacks. Look, if I can get the Niners now at plus money, I think this is just going to keep dropping.
Yeah.
Like, to me right now, you missed the boat on the Bears. If you want to bet the Bears, look, you bet the 3, you're not betting a good number. You got to wait and hopefully get a better number live, or you can get the 49ers at plus money. For me, I'm going to be on the 49ers live. I'm just going to be waiting on it.
Waiting for the best opportunity you can get. One of the real sports talk radio takes this week I heard coming out of Chicago was, should the Bears trade for Kyle Shanahan? I don't know if you heard this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought that it's not like that's like a sports radio hot take. The host says, but you could see a world where Shanahan coming to Chicago, wanting to pair a guy like that with Caleb Williams. Chicago's been so bad for a while, especially offensively. Like, you'd think they would look a lot better, but so many things would have to happen with trading the picks and all that stuff. Like, the logistics of something like that is hard to map out. It just was such a funny, like, hot take. And you will love the segment that they're starting to do now on PFF. So on Pro Football Focus, they have like a weekly recap and then like a weekly preview. So on Monday morning, they'll do their recap of all the games. Actually, these are the guys now that left Pro Football Focus, Sam Monson, and so they do their own pod now with I think 3013. But what's really funny, one of their segments is called the Shouty Show segment. So they'll pick like 4 or 5 clips from all of those shows, Eric, that we talk about, like the ones on ESPN where it's just like Skip and Stephen A yelling at each other, and they'll watch one of those segments and like react to it and kind of grade it and be like, okay, how was his take on the Shouty Show? Because they think they're so absurd. It actually was pretty funny the other day because Nick Wright was on the show with them and they were all watching segments and grading them. And Nick does a lot of those like Shouty Show segments. So it was pretty funny to hear them all like.
It's funny because I'm looking at Twitter right now and I just opened it up and the first thing that popped up, would this be a good deal for the Bears? Shanahan in a 6th-round pick and the 49ers get a 1st, a 2nd, and a 4th.
There we go. Right. That was the one that I heard. I always think it's funny when you get some of those.
But I mean, the thing is obviously you want to get an offensive type minded coach to bring in with Williams.
Because someone like Vrabel probably wouldn't be a good fit with him, right?
Yeah. Now, I know there's a lot of Kingsbury stuff going around, but do you really want Kyle?
Nah, I don't know. Not as a head coach. Definitely
Nathan
not.
Riley struggled this year at USC. Obviously, I think if you get him to be the OC, I think
that would be right. That would be kind of.
But I don't think he's going to do that. I think
either.
He would be the lead guy.
I agree. That would be something like, I don't know if he's interested, but your guy from Detroit who's turned down a lot of jobs. I don't like, because when you look at this spot, like coaching Caleb Williams is a good job for an offensive guy, but the way this organization has been run from the top down for a while, I don't know if he's been very selective, right? I mean, he's had opportunities so far and he has not gone. I don't know if the Bears job would be one that would be calling to him, but he would be the type of guy I'd be looking for.
Well, we're going to be able to tell because he has said right from the get-go that this year he's only going to take interviews with teams that he is serious about.
And he would maybe take their job.
Taking their job. And one of their things is infrastructure starting at the top. Now, what does that look like in Chicago? Would you say Chicago has good infrastructure at the top? I would say no.
No. I agree. Fun game with the Bears at the 49ers. Let's get to Sunday Night Football. Eric, 2 more games to discuss this week. Chargers at the Chiefs. Big game here. You were talking about earlier, there was a game where you wanted to fade both teams. This was the one for me because we've all seen the Chiefs just squeaking by so many times this year.
Yeah.
And we've talked about them in comparison to like the Eagles or the Vikings teams from a couple years ago. They're a little different, in my opinion, just a little, because they have the Mahomes factor. They've been there. I think their defense is a little better than some of the other defenses on those teams, but their defense in the last 4 or 5 weeks has completely flipped, including their passing defense, Eric. It's not been as good. It was one of the better overall defenses earlier in the year. I don't know if the Chargers are going to be able to attack that with weapons. They just don't have very many weapons right now. And the Chargers should have lost last week. They only had 187 total yards. The reason why they won that game was because Cousins threw 4 interceptions and Koo missed kicks. Otherwise, they probably get beat up in that game. I'm going back and forth. When I do that, I'll just probably lean on the dog in this situation, but I don't really love either of these sides because I wanted to fade them both. I think you're more on the Charger side here, though, right?
Must-win fantasy game, and I said Vidal was going to be a pivotal part of the offense, and I'm doing it. Vidal's in my starting lineup because Jonathan Taylor is on bye. His rushing prop is 15.5. Like, literally, I think that's worth a flyer. His touchdown prop is plus 700. I think that's worth a flyer here. You weren't here one week, and we were able to catch the same scenario with Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall was coming into a role where he was going to be featured. We got him at plus 400 to score a touchdown. We got his over of 15 yards, hit on the first play with a 40-yard touchdown. So I'm doing Vidal 7-1 to get a tutty. That's on Fanatics. 15.5 on FanDuel, his rushing props. In terms of this game, I did the Chargers here. I mean, it's just one of those things. Mahomes over a favorite of 3.5 or more. You fade him. Historically speaking, if you do this, you're going to make money. When we look at this, Vidal and Edwards both averaged over 5 yards a game. I rewatched that game. It was the weirdest game in the world. Like, that game had finished last week. Other games were still 5 minutes left in the third. The pace of that game was just absolutely insane. We don't know what's going on with Ladd. Is Ladd going to play? Is he not going to play? This also kind of leads me to Vidal because I think they're going to lean on this run game more. Chargers defense, top 10 unit in the league defensively. I think they're going to be able to limit Mahomes. I think they're going to be able to limit Pacheco. Hunt has looked beat up. He's starting to slow down. I know there's this stuff about Humphreys playing tackle, but he's coming back. Like, we don't know what he's going to look like. You got Mack, you got Bosa. I think they're going to be able to get to Burrow, make it a little bit hard. Herbert, for as much shit as he gets, he's not turning the ball over. He is playing good. Anything over a field goal here, in my eyes.
He looks healthier, right? He was just banged up, I think, at the beginning of the year, Herbert. He just looks...
Also with the Chiefs, they just look tired. I think this is the point
right now. They played a lot of games the last couple of years, man. It's wear and tear.
Tired. And now they're on that stretch where everything's kind of getting condensed. Don't they play on Thanksgiving, not Thanksgiving, Christmas Day too?
Yeah.
I think this is just getting a little condensed for them. So I'm going to do it.
Chargers for Eric. On my picks pool, I have to make a pick for everyone. I'm going to be on the Chargers there more. It just probably wasn't one of the games I was lining up to play. We've got Monday Night Football, Bengals at the Cowboys. A couple teams that were thinking they were going to be in a different spot than this at this point of the year. But we've got Joe Burrow, who's playing as well as any quarterback in the league, who could be a legitimate MVP candidate if he didn't have the worst defense in absolute history. And that's my biggest concern here, Eric. Like, I'm looking at this game going, why? I know Dallas isn't good. Dallas has been really bad at home in particular, but they've actually played a lot better the last couple of weeks. They've been much more competent. They've won a couple games in a row. The Bengals are a 5.5 point favorite on the road here.
Yeah, with this defense, how can you trust us? This defense
is terrible defensively.
Bad. We don't realize over 3,000 yards, 30 TDs, five interceptions. That's Burrow. If this defense was anything, that's your MVP of the league.
They have eight losses this year. He has 5 times thrown for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a loss, and 3 in a row. So 5 is the most it's ever happened in one season. 3 in a row is the most it's ever happened in a row, where a quarterback has thrown 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and their team has lost. They've scored 38 points 3 times, and they've only won 1. The rest of the league is 21-0 when scoring 38 plus in a game. They've lost 3 times when scoring 30 plus points on defense. I mean, this defense is awful.
Yeah, I mean, there's been 20 games this year. The quarterback, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Bengals are 0-5 in all of them. When we look at this through 12 games, there's been 9 quarterbacks that have there's been 7 quarterbacks that have made it to game 12 with 30 TDs. You add up their losses, there's 9. Burrow has 8. You know what I mean? That just kind of shows you how bad this defense is. In terms of this game, for me, it's simple. They're going to throw. I know people are going to lean to the over, especially with the trend of Monday night games going to over. For me, I'm just going T. Higgins. Bengals, Higgins and Chase are pretty easy to figure out. Man coverage, Chase, zone coverage, Higgins, Cowboys run zone. I'll be looking into some Higgins props.
Okay, Eric. So as we finish up here, we want to remind everybody that if they're looking for some Sunday action, the place to go is Boom Fantasy. I'm going to pull up your Boom Fantasy play. This is Uncle Rico's right here. So you've got the QR code on there, or people can use the promo code if they want to go and get a little bit of action, right? Why don't you give them the promo code?
Yeah, shout out to my boy Bryce from the Anita Sports Pod. He asked him if he can make a QR code for us. He made a QR code for us. For those watching, just put your phone up there. I'll take you right to our link. I've been vocal. I've been hyping up Mike Williams. I'm going to play everything Mike Williams. You can get plus 2.
Evans.
Sorry. Evans. Get everything you can get a plus 235 to have over a hundo. Played that as well. Ridley, great matchup against this Jaguars defense in a revenge spot. And look, I talked about Jacoby Myers. These are my 3 favorite props for the day, so I'm going to be putting all of them together. I think it's like plus 537. Nice little ROI for that.
Beautiful. For me, Eric, I talked about Cousins. I went over the 1.5 passing touchdowns there. And then Washington was the receiver that you and I talked about from Jacksonville. It's only 31.5 there. So both of these guys would be ones that I would also throw in to some DFS lineups if you're playing any DraftKings or anything like that. So Boom Fantasy, you can use the QR code. It'll take you right there. You still have over an hour if you want to get involved in some of the early games. Remember, for all different sports, you can play Boom Fantasy with NBA going on right now. And when other sports are happening, you can check them out as well. One thing I wanted to mention, holiday season, Eric, for any of the horse players out there that are friends of yours or anyone, family members that like to play the races, a good gift for them is a DRF gift card. You know they're going to be getting those past performances. You know they're going to be needing to play the racing form. They can get some clocker reports, other stuff. So if you know someone that you like out there, you're going to get a gift for, likes to play the races, this is a really good gift for them because you can let them kind of do whatever they want with a lot of those horse racing products at drf.com. And then we had a question. This is a wrestling question. So as we finish up here, I just wanted to answer this one because it came up. Haven't listened to your pod recently. What are your and Chad thoughts on the Death Riders in AEW? So that's the group that's led by Jon Moxley. I completely agree. I think it could have been something. One of the problems that AEW has, they're just not really good on the following up the week-to-week storylines. That's where WWE is really, really great. AEW is good in ring. They'll have some incredible matches, but after a while, you need kind of the storylines, Eric, right? To kind of get you interested in the good matches. We could pull up good matches on YouTube anywhere they are. Never watched wrestling since I was a kid. Yeah, my dad coached wrestling in high school. I wrestled myself growing up, so I always watched wrestling when I was young because I loved it, and I thought one day maybe I would be a pro wrestler. But Eric, love chatting with you, buddy. Good luck to you with your plays this week. I hate the Lakers. Let's make some money. Love hearing from you guys. Bobby Thomas, appreciate you checking in. Let's make some money. Sports Facts, all of you. We always want to hear from you in the YouTube chats, some of your plays, any questions that you have. Final thoughts before we get out of here, buddy.
Good luck in your bets, and hopefully we can make you guys some cash, dude.
Only 4 weeks left after today. That is crazy. So take advantage as the NFL season is winding down. We wish you all the best of luck today.